I'm Sara Tucker. You're Judith Macy. This is the Washburn University, Kansas Legislative Women's Oral History Project. You are the Democratic representative of the 43rd District,
That's right.
Which is DeKalb. Am I saying?
You want to know where
Yes.
the 43rd District is? It's Johnson and Douglas counties. It encompasses the little community of DeSoto, Gardner, Edgerton, and Eudora.
Okay.
It actually goes into the city of Sharon E and west to the city limits of Lawrence. So it's a rural district.
But really on that whole corridor that's...
Right.
Well, let me start out by asking you my usual starter question, which is your political origins. How did you come to get involved in politics originally?
I really haven't ever been involved in politics. My family was not political. They were small town people that were involved in the community and active in civic organizations, churches and things like that, but we were never what you would call political. So I grew up with that kind of mentor, I suppose, being involved in things. I was always involved in school and settled in my hometown. I became involved in the community, participating in things, and led a charge in one somewhat political activity. And I think because I was successful in accomplishing that particular goal, by uniting the people in the community to vote a particular way on a local issue. I think maybe the Democratic Party felt I would carry at least that community and that I would be a good candidate. So they actually came to me and asked me to run. I'd never, ever considered politics. And but now I'm glad that they did. I'm getting a good education.
So this is your first term. You just got recruited, and you won your election. How did you go about this? Why do you think you won? Were there issues involved?
Our campaign was not a heated campaign. I ran against a man from a small community in Eudora, and we were very diverse in our backgrounds. He portrayed a family man image to the public. He had been married for a number of years and would always raise that as one of his qualifications, and that he had a large family, and apparently was attempting to show that he was a very stable, dependable businessman. Mm-hmm. And I, on the other hand, have been divorced for 13 years, and being a woman, he would point out that it would be better for me if I would not run for this particular position because I still had a child at home. So when that particular issue came up, I did use it to its fullest advantage. My child was 15. My other two children were grown, and so we disseminated that information to all of the women in the district that I could afford to send that to. And the newspapers loved it, and they endorsed me and thought he was pretty antiquated. He's a Catholic, definitely pro-life, and I was pro-choice. But he did not want to argue with me on anything. So it was kind of a nice campaign, except that I think everyone knew that he was a little bit chauvinistic and outdated.
Yeah. Now, are you from DeSoto as a native? Did you grow up there?
I grew up there. Left for a few years and traveled around the United States, but settled back in that community. So I come from a large family. There are 8 children in my family, and we all live in that general vicinity, and so I'm very well known in that community.
Do you think you beat him on the issues then? Why did you win? Was it a Democratic district to begin with?
No, it's a Republican district, and there were probably several things that went into helping me win. One is that I was a resident of Johnson County. That 75% of the total voters were residents of Johnson County. my opponent was on the Douglas County side. So there probably were some people who voted for me because they felt that Johnson County would be better represented by a Johnson County resident. I think I pulled a lot of women, votes from women because of the issue that you raised about me staying home. And some men too. I did get a lot of comments from them. I worked very, very hard. I didn't know how to run a campaign, and my campaign manager decided to go back for her master's about a month after she volunteered to be my campaign manager. So I ended up running it myself, and with not too many volunteers, but I think the party had a lot of confidence in me. I'm generally considered to be very honest, down to earth, somewhat outspoken, not aggressive, but assertive, I guess you would say. The fact that I have an education and an attorney helped me. The opponent never raised the issue of education, but I don't think he had anything at the high school level, or he wouldn't use that. Other than that, there were some people in his own hometown that did not care for him, so I carried Douglas County a lot better than he thought I would. He'd been involved in city politics for a number of years, and I think anytime you are, you make enemies. There were people that just voted for me and against him.
So there was no incumbent in this race. You were both...
It was an open seat. The incumbent would have been Dave Miller, and he ran for lieutenant governor.
Of course. And he...
With Wygand.
With Wygand. How did you go about getting to the voters? Did you have a strategy?
I went to a training class early on. They gave us, of course, a lot of information on how to run a successful campaign. It was really just common sense. I had a lot of help from the Democratic Party. There was a gentleman that had been working with Carlin, and when Carlin lost, he was assigned to help me and a few other newcomers.
Yes.
And he was a big help because he not only gave me a lot of encouragement and telling me you're doing the right thing, but he would make suggestions that were beneficial. In other words, he would say, the most important thing you need to do is raise money and go door to door. Don't be so concerned about all these other things. He designed a lot of my campaign literature, and I'm sure that there were people in the Democratic Party that were selling me to people who had money, because I received a lot of large contributions from Democrats across the state.
And so then, doubtless you had something you could spend it all on. You mentioned the mailings, getting things to women, and so on.
We spent it as fast as we received it. Each time we received a nice donation, we would design it in the brochure. And because no one, for the most part in the district, knew me, it was real important for me to get my name out to the voters. And so we, in one particular area, and we hit Johnson County the hardest because there are more voters on that side. We sent, I think, 7 flyers total to one area, and I heard that my opponent sent 1. And so, and I guess there is a point at which you should not send any more literature because people will become frustrated in seeing your face that much. So we had to kind of gauge that and try not to offend people. But I did do a lot of mailers. I went door to door in all of the communities and tried to go to every single door that had a registered voter in the household. And I spent months doing that personally. So I think the combination between the door to door and all the mailers, at least the people recognized my name, and a lot of them began to recognize my face because there was a picture.
Did he go door to door? Did he do that at all?
I think his wife went door to door for him because I frequently would run into her. We would be on the same route, and she would leave a card in the door. I'm sorry I missed you, signed by her husband when there were people not home. He was running a business, and I think his wife probably contributed to his campaign as much as he did.
When you took this on, what did you conceive of the job as being. What to you is the job you now have of being a representative of your district, a legislator in the House of Representatives?
I'm not sure really what I thought it was going to be when I made the decision. I was extremely flattered that these people that I didn't even know would come to me and say, we think you are the best candidate in this whole district. And when I told them I wasn't interested, I said, aren't you looking at anyone else? And they said, no, we want you. And that was real flattering, and I'm sure a lot of my ego thought, I wonder if I really could do this.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to make decisions in my life. I take risks, but I hope they're calculated risks,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a big risk to me. So I'm not really sure what I expected it to be, but now that I am here, I've gone through several stages. I've gone through a real disillusion stage, but now I am beginning to, I think I am toughening up. I realize that you cannot please all the people. You simply have to make a decision based on your own best instinct, go with it, and try to explain to everyone why you are taking that particular position, and if they are offended, and that means you lose the vote, so be it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How are you planning to get reelected, assuming, of course, that's what you decide to do? And how do you do the other half of the staying in touch? How is that going? Of course, I'm asking you awfully early. Right now, you're here to do the job here in Topeka.
Both parties, from day one, the day you begin serving in the legislature, are talking to you about re-election and constituent service. So it's not something that you have not thought about. You are thinking about it from the minute you get in here. And what you try to do is to not let that get in the way of doing your job up here. You have, and I will have public forums in all of these little communities. I have those planned next month. I do a weekly newsletter in the local newspapers. They are just really excited to get that column, and I'm real happy that they are. Make a lot of phone calls, answer a lot of letters. When they contact, any constituent contacts me with questions, you try to respond to that as quickly as you can. It doesn't always, they're not going to hear always what they want to hear. For instance, I just had a woman call and said, I want you to vote this particular way on this particular bill. And I just have to tell those people that I have to listen to people in the entire district. And that, I don't mean to be rude, but just because you receive one phone call from one person, that does not mean you have to vote that way on the bill. And I think you just have to be tough. You just have to be tough.
When you came here, did you have certain committees you wanted to be on? Did you get them?
We were told to put in for committees. We were also told as freshmen that we would take the committees they assigned us to. My number one choice I did get, and that's judiciary. I'm on 4 committees, which is, I think, a little bit unusual. Plus I'm vice chairing one of those, which I have heard is very unusual for freshmen. And that's a lot of additional work. But I'm enjoying those. Even the committees that I really don't know that much about, I feel that I am learning a lot. I can understand what people are saying when they're testifying. I can review the bill and understand the language. So while I am at a disadvantage and not having a background, let's say, in local government, I feel like I'm able to keep up with it just by paying attention and reading.
Okay. So you have judiciary.
Local government, elections, which I'm vice chairing, and pensions, benefits, and investments.
Was that what you wanted?
I wanted judiciary, and it really didn't matter to me. Had I not gotten judiciary, I would have been disappointed. But as far as any of the other committees, it really didn't matter.
So tell me about that. When we started this, one of the questions we put in was committees. And I have been getting very interesting readings on committees. Why didn't it matter? How do you see committees playing a role in terms of what you hope to accomplish here at the legislature, or don't you see them?
I don't see that as important. I know that a lot of people place a great deal of importance on being on those particular status committees, like education appropriations, etc. To me, that's not where my priority is right now. After I have been up here for a while, then I may change my mind, and I may think I would love to be on appropriations because now I understand how it all works, and I want to have a say in that committee. But as far as I'm concerned now, I have a vote on the floor and the opportunity to make a difference on any bill that makes it out of committee. Where I don't have a vote is, let's say, on that specific committee on a particular bill, but you have to trust those committees to work those bills so that when they come out to the floor, they are fine-tuned enough that people should be able to make a decision and vote one way or the other.
What are you working on accomplishing as you learn this job? How do you have mentors? Is there a group of people you go to or you're patting yourself off with?
We were asked to put down some names of people who we would like to have as mentors. I have been assigned 2 mentors and I never see them. I'm sure that they would help me any way they could if I ask. It's just that they are both extremely busy. They're both chairing committees, vice chairing committees. They're on busy committees like the Appropriation, Education, Health and Welfare, and so I don't ask them for any help and they don't offer me.
Which sounds fair. What I'm really getting at, maybe something that just isn't connecting, but assuming you didn't know exactly how to do your job when you got here, how are you going about doing it? How does one do the process of learning to be as effective as possible?
I think it's like any other thing. If you pay attention to what's going on, you don't necessarily have to speak to every single question and every single issue. If you can listen to what people are saying, pay attention. If you have any common sense at all, it really isn't that difficult. You do learn quickly how the system works. I had absolutely no idea how this maze worked up here in Geneva. And I feel fairly comfortable with it right now. And that's just that kind of
Do you go home every night? How do you handle being here in Topeka all day?
I do go home every night because I still have a son that's at home, 15, and a single parent. That's a 1-hour drive for me, which is not bad, except that I am going into my law office every night, and that has been extremely difficult for me. I'm going to have to adjust that. I've talked to other attorneys who are here serving, and they tell me they don't practice law in session. My problem is I have no other source of income, and most of those people, if not all, have spouses or partners or someone that is helping them get through this 4 or 5 month period. So that has been the most difficult thing for me, is to try to keep my practice going, and this too.
Well, now that you have broached that, and in fact I was going to be as nosy as I could anyway, how do you do this? You are in solo practice then as a lawyer? I
have my own office. In fact, I'm relocating my own office, which is insane, right in the middle of session. But my practice is in my hometown. I can return calls as far as how we get through the logistics of the business. I can return calls in the evenings that I receive during the day. I have a machine on. I'm in there all weekend. People know that I'm in there on Saturdays, and so if they need to see me, they can come in on Saturdays, and then Sundays I try to get caught up on the paperwork. As far as court appearances, the courts have worked with me. Friday afternoons we are free to leave here, and that's normally when I do my courtroom work. It's Friday afternoon.
What percentage of work, assuming standard is 100%, which you would do if you weren't here at all and you weren't campaigning, what percentage can you do during the legislature?
What percent of my day is spent on legal work?
Or how much of what you would normally do can you get accomplished? Have you had to turn away clients or defer things?
Yes, I have had to do both, and I am doing more as I see that it's really dragging on me physically. I don't have the physical stamina that I should have, and that's real important this year. In fact, I'm a heavy smoker. It's not good, and And I know that. And you really do need energy. You need physical energy to keep the pace up. And so since I had decided and made the choice to continue to smoke, what I'm doing is cutting back on my love until I rationalize that. But I am referring things out. I've had a lot of attorneys say that they will be glad to help me when they can. What I do a lot of times is work a case clear up to appearing in court, and then someone stands in for me.
But you're obviously getting a lot of support. How hard did you have to think about it? This is a big sacrifice for you.
I made a decision, and any major decision, I will give it 24 hours. And that's what I did on this one.
And it just appealed?
Yes, it did. I'm a believer, it may sound real strange, but in fate. I've had some things happen to me over the years that it seemed to be a message that was coming to me that, yes, you should do this, for whatever reason we don't know. I had the same experience in law school. I had absolutely no ambition for law school ever. And when I completed my undergraduate degree, things fell into place. I made the decision to go to law school and was in within 6 weeks, and actually made it and graduated, which was not anything I had ever thought about doing. And those things just seem to happen to me, and I don't really know why. I'm not sure that I'm really glad that they happen, because I don't ever have any fun.
Oh dear.
It's all work. I continue to set these goals and strive toward these goals. I seem to be driven. My family doesn't understand why I am driven toward these things. There are only 3 people in my family of 8 children that have degrees, college degrees. We're a blue-collar family.
Tell me about your family. You said there are 8 children. You say that you are essentially from DeSoto. Obviously, one of the things I'm interested in is whether there were any role models for this still somewhat unusual female career.
We were raised, I think, to be very independent children, because there were so many of us. If we wanted something, we had to go out and work for it, period. It was also, I think, somewhat chauvinistic time. I'm almost 50 now, so that gives you an idea of the era I grew up in. I have a combination, I think, and I'm glad of both my parents. My dad was a very hard-working person. He always had his own business, but frequently changed that business, and seemed to do a little better each time. We never really had much to eat. He had a lot of self-confidence in himself, and he had like a 6th grade education. And my mother was, she was just a very well-liked, nice person. And she was intelligent, but she did not have schooling. So I hope I got some of her genes and maybe some of the common sense and drive that my father had. I don't know.
Did she work outside the home ever?
Oh, no. She,
well, with 8 kids, I'm not. You notice I didn't say did she work.
no. And in fact, well, she worked in the home. She took in a lot of laundry, and eventually we had a little laundromat. We did laundry for people in the town. We had apartments that my dad rented out, so we maintained those things. But she didn't ever work outside the home. She didn't even drive a car.
So, and ending up in law school is kind of unusual. Where did you go to school before law school, and where did you go to law school?
I was a secretary for years and started 2 night school right after my divorce, so that I could get an education in anything, so that I could support children. I wasn't getting child support. It seemed to be the thing to do. And so I went to night school at Johnstown Community College, got my associate, and then went on to the Auto University Extension that they had in the plaza, because I worked not far from there. And so I could go there at nights and on Saturdays. And then it took me a number of years to get the undergraduate degree. And then I went to a counselor who put me through the testing to see what I might be when I was going to do my job search for my big career after getting my undergraduate. And that's where the idea came up for law school. And apparently I tested well in that area. And that was in the spring of a year, and so I got on my waiting list for 2 law schools and was accepted. And just shortly after that.
So you really are one of those women who married soon after high school or something like that?
Fairly soon. I was going on 21.
And bore children and then got your education to be able to pay the bills.
Right. I suppose at one time they called it non-traditional, but I didn't have college until I got my divorce. So I think it took me about 10 years to get my college out of the way.
I am being nosy here. How in the world did you pay for law school?
That was a big challenge. I could take care of the night classes and pay for that, kind of pay as you go. But in law school, you have to go full-time during the day, and I had to quit my job. And I had a lot of people who thought I was crazy. They couldn't believe I was going to do that. It really was a challenge, but a good experience, because when you're poor, there are all kinds of advantages in life if you just know where to go to find those things. My children had free lunches at school, which I'm not proud of, but we didn't have the money. I could get cheese and bread from the county, which we did, and I borrowed the maximum amount of money for school that I could for school loans, and probably will not live long enough to pay all of those. But we lived on school loans. And then I did work part-time in law school, too.
So, you graduated from law school. You opened up a solo practice. And you became a legislator after how many years of law practice?
I've been in law school 4 years. I worked for another attorney for a couple of years, and I thought, I might as well do this myself. And again, there were a lot of people that thought that was not a wise move. Only 2 years out of law school to open my practice, but I've made twice as much money working by myself as I was working for someone else and turning over all the money to him. I guess 4 years out of law school.
Often I ask, isn't this awfully disruptive to your family? It sounds to me if your family could live through all of this probably isn't much of a challenge at all, but how is it affecting your family to be doing all this?
My children have always been extremely supportive of me, and I think one of the reasons I say I never had any fun. If I had any time at all from whatever particular goal I'm trying to achieve, I give it to my kids, and they have just turned out wonderful. My oldest daughter sent herself through college because we were both in school at the same time, and she's now a career woman and doing well. And I have a second daughter that is sending herself through school. And I think my son at home he has grown up with a mother that does unusual kinds of things, and they all accept it, and they have always supported me wholeheartedly. They're very proud of me, and I'm real proud of them too.
That's fascinating. Where did you go to law school?
UMKC.
UMKC. Again, a question I always ask is, what does it cost you to be a legislator? And of course that can be money, that can be emotions, and so on.
I don't think the people in the district realize what a hardship this is. First of all, you have to have a business you can walk away from for 4 months. All of us do. You are under a great deal of pressure all day, an extremely exhausting schedule from morning till night if you want to include nights. You are being pressured from everywhere to make decisions in a certain way. And I'm not sure that people in the district really realize what it's like to be. I would love to have them spend a day with me as a legislator. Particularly when I read articles in the newspaper that we're not doing anything up here, all we're doing is partying, etc. I don't go to the functions at night, I rarely do. I don't have time. But I guess I think we are accomplishing a very good thing up here. It just takes an awful lot of dedication to do it, and you are going to be attacked constantly. People that come and testify in front of our committees will call legislators everything in the book. We're thieves, we're corrupt, we're this, we're that, and you have to not take that personally.
Okay. Why are you a Democrat?
I think I'm a Democrat because my mother was a Democrat, and I identified with her as a role model, probably more than my dad. He was a Republican, and the only political thing I ever heard in my life in my home was that they belonged to the opposite parties and they voted to cancel each other's vote. I mean, that was the only discussion that they ever had.
So, is there some kind of democratic thing you're hoping to accomplish here? Or I really am interested to know what it is about your party makes you want to put up with all of this, makes you go through all of that. What is that bit of being a Democrat that works for you?
When I started my campaign, I really didn't know that Democrats had certain kinds of characteristics or goals, or they have kind of a theme, a general theme to their party, the same as Republicans. I really didn't know this, but after I have gotten into it, I realized that I am truly a Democrat, and I have discovered that most of us are people that really have not had an awful lot handed to us. We're not wealthy. We're more of a working class type person. We fight for the underdog, the middle class, the underprivileged, more so, I believe, than do Republicans. I think that, and it could be a misconception, but that's my own opinion, that Republicans generally are supported by big businesses and they will fight to support that entity, whereas the Democrats are trying to help the common ordinary person.
Okay. By the very nature of the fact we are interviewing women, obviously that is a topic that is part of what we're interested in. You haven't been here long, but you've certainly been a citizen of Kansas. How do you think it matters? What do you see is the difference being a female legislator? Have you felt as though the fact that you are of the female gender has made any difference to your experience here so far?
Occasionally I do feel that it's like any other business. Even as an attorney, I don't normally think of myself as a woman. I think of myself as being in a business to accomplish something. But occasionally something will come up and you realize you're being discriminated against and you are being thought of a little bit different than the male race. But I have never been one to champion any causes for women. I've been too busy just trying to accomplish my own goals. But it does offend me when I see certain what I consider discriminatory feelings or
about it. Okay, we're going again.
I don't know where I was in my thought, but I don't think about being a woman legislator that often. It's only when something brings it to my attention, and I think I discussed with you an incident where we had to, it was announced on the House floor that all the women legislators should go down to the front and pick up a carnation and pin it on the lapel of our guards. And that should not have bothered me, but it did. It seems like it points out the fact that we are different, and we are different. But I just don't think about it.
What did you think I would ask you that I haven't? What do you think I should ask you that I haven't? Is there something you would like to get on this record?
Can I ask you? I'll ask you a question. What will you be doing with the material? Are you going to maybe go on a book, and maybe what kind of message are you going to be?
Well, I hope that whatever message it is the message we hear as opposed to the one we look for. Part of what we're going to be looking at is how all of you compare to women who came early. There is a very good chance that we or someone else will do a probably randomly selected sample of men and look at whatever patterns of difference we see. The other possibility is, or the other thing, the problem is this is too exciting at the topic. I'm also terribly interested in women in Kansas, and I think that looking at women legislators across the time from 1919, when the first woman kind of came into the House, would be to also look at other women in Kansas, including the populace, including the various organizations, and to simply see how different Kansas is or is not. in terms of, are there any frontier differences that really change women's lives, or are they just window dressing? So, as a historian, what I'm interested in is changing women's lives. I think we're just real interested. And I'm interested in any perspective that living human women have, because that's what you don't get out of the documents. When you study documents of people who are dead, after a while you would kill to get in a time machine and go back and say, tell me the real story. Tell me how you felt. And so what we're trying to do is get that story on the record and then do it in relationship to all the other things. So how you feel, the reality you see, that's what I'm most looking for, as much as you're willing to share.
To give you just a general statement, I feel that women have come a long way, but we have so far to go. I talk frequently to my daughter that just started her career. She is so frustrated by discriminatory kinds of things that go on in her particular office, and it's like a broken record. There are things that I can remember happening when I was her age, working in an atmosphere where all the bosses were men. Even if you were a woman with a college degree, you were not considered a professional unless you were extremely tough, which is probably where she's headed. She will have to get very mean, very tough, and then of course she'll be a bitch in the eyes of everybody in the office. I am, I think, frustrated with the pace. I don't think we are achieving an equal status quickly enough. That frustrates me. And yet I'm really not doing anything personally to help that. I don't go out and work for women. I'm not really a joiner anymore. I don't have time. I do encourage my own daughters to try to be whatever they want to be and to fight the system, constantly fight the system. And that's all I have done to help the situation, so I shouldn't be complaining about it, I suppose.
Well, in a sense, you have altered the situation. There are 44 women in the Kansas legislature, elected, honest to God, real legislators, 9 senators and 35 representatives. Not to make the point either way, but do you see any issues you want to bring up? Do you see any changes that you think you and your sisters and the sisters will be joining? And of course, if you enlighten men, perhaps all the way, being able to make a difference. Do you see things changing?
I see things changing in one respect. What they used to call women's issues are not necessarily women's issues, but there are some men legislators that are promoting those things as well, and those are health care, child care, child support, all of those kinds of things that you would normally think only women would be interested in. I am seeing that there are several men that are also promoting, assisting in those particular areas.
Well, I somehow have confidence that good women go out and do the job in a way that's changing things. I agree with you. We have a ways to go. Well, let me thank you very much.
Thank you.